Hello, I am Jimena Bernal, and I'm an associate professor at Purdue University and research associate at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. While I wish I could be there in Cartagena with all of you, I am thankful for the opportunity to participate in this conversation. In this short talk, I will provide an overview of the challenges and strategies to promote inclusion and equity in fieldwork, and I will highlight resources available to create safe fieldwork environments for all. I don't think I need to remind this audience of the importance of fieldwork. Doing fieldwork is where many of us fell in love with biology and tropical biology in particular. We also know how fieldwork is an engine of scientific productivity. There was a study that came out a decade ago in which the authors evaluated the survey that was done by the Organization for Tropical Studies undergraduates from their programs. And they found that graduates that were still involved in tropical fieldwork produced a higher number of papers, got more grants, and a larger total amount of grant money than their counterparts that were still in research and not doing fieldwork. However, other benefits of fieldwork are less obvious. Fieldwork is critical, for instance, for broadening participation in ecology and evolutionary biology. EEB in general lags behind other subfields of biology in diversity and inclusion. In the United States, for example, about 6% of EB graduate students are from underrepresented backgrounds, compared with about 10% in the biomedical sciences. And this is not a problem of interest. It's not about recruitment. It's a problem of retention. And students from racial, cultural, economic, and other underrepresented backgrounds drop out of EB at higher rates than their peers. And this is where fieldwork can help us. Participation of underrepresented minorities in field-based courses is in general low. However, well-structured field courses can inspire and have impactful positive effects on participants from these groups. In this study, studies from underrepresented groups that participated in field course were shown to have higher self-efficacy gains, higher college graduation rates, higher EB retention, major retention, and fieldwork-based courses help narrow the achievement gaps. The benefits of safe fieldwork and well-structured programs extend to grad students and postdocs, but fieldwork can also be the turning point in which young investigators are driven away from EB as they may not have feelings of belonging or don't feel safe in the field. So what are the challenges associated with fieldwork that are limiting participation? I want to highlight three. The first one is financial barriers. Access to fieldwork is costly. In addition, having the appropriate clothing, materials, and equipment is also expensive. And to this, we can add the problematic approach of having unpaid positions. Unfortunately, a large proportion of fieldwork positions in wildlife ecology and conservation are unpaid, relying on volunteering work, and this greatly limits participation. Another factor that acts as a barrier of who can participate in fieldwork is lack of accessibility and safety for researchers with disabilities. Studies have shown that most field stations and field sites do not provide the infrastructure for researchers with physical, sensory, or mental disabilities. And a third and major factor that is experienced by those that are participating in fieldwork is sexism and harassment, which is rampant in fieldwork. A survey led by archaeologist Kate Clancy found that 71% of women and about 41% of men report to have experienced harassment during fieldwork. In addition, 26% of women and 6% of men have been assaulted during fieldwork. This survey also revealed that women trainees were the primary targets and their perpetrators were predominantly senior to them within their research team. In contrast, male trainees were more often targeted by their peers at the research site. So we may think that many of these are systemic issues that are true not only to fieldwork, but in general in academia. However, I would like to point out that doing fieldwork exacerbates factors that amplify safety risk. Fieldwork often takes place in remote locations, results in researchers being isolated and disconnected from their usual support networks. And field accommodations also often result in limited privacy, as researchers may need to share dormitories, bathrooms, and often spend all time 24/7 together in such working/living conditions. In addition, there are other major cultural factors that affect safety in the field. The longstanding culture attitude of like, oh, what happens in the field stays in the field can have tremendous deleterious effect. At the same time, fieldwork is deeply ingrained with male-dominated culture, and there is, in general, a lack of comprehensive policies and or accountability. And I would like to also point out that personal perception of safety can provide limited subjective views of risk that other researchers confront, and this biases our strategies and approaches to fieldwork. And I want to illustrate this with this cartoon by Nathan Pyle, in which you see these two bald eagles that are chatting in their living room, and one says, "Do you think the owl is a predator?" "Of course not, he's never bothered me." Exactly. And then they keep thinking, and the other one says after a while, "Oh, no idea what Mr. Mouse was going on about." And this is a very important point to remember. When we think about fieldwork experiences and safety, it is necessary to consider that our impressions and perceptions are unique to us. So when I do fieldwork, I assess my risk from my position of privilege as an able cisgender heterosexual researcher, and also as a principal investigator. And while I'm acutely aware of the risk that I can incur as a woman, the lenses through which I see fieldwork can be biased, and not can be, are biased by who I am and my past experiences. This point is beautifully illustrated in a paper that came out last year written by Amélie Juliette Demery and Monique Pipkin. They provide 4 very powerful examples of situations that are experienced by at-risk individuals in the field. So I want to highlight them. This is the first one. Here we have a Black ornithologist that is approached by law enforcement. Second one, we have a Sikh entomologist experiences a hateful landscape. Here we have a bisexual ichthyologist as they are accosted by hate speech. And finally, a deaf botanist is verbally abused due to her disability. So I would like to call for increased awareness of who we are and how that affects our sense of fieldwork safety. How does it compare to others in our research teams? And of course, think about how intersectionality and those intersectionality lenses are critical for understanding safe in the field, but also assessing effectiveness of strategies and the policies that we want to implement. I first proposed this talk over 2 years ago, seems like forever ago, and it was postponed because of the pandemic, but it has been with great excitement that I have seen the conversations of fieldwork, equity, inclusion, and belonging rapidly unfolding over the last 2 years. This conversation has been greatly fueled by brave, smart women that have come forward to share their experiences. Here, I highlight only a few of them, but I want us all to acknowledge all the many courageous women that have brought up their experiences and have incurred risk to speak up and to ultimately improve conditions for all of us. So thank you to all those brave survivors. And with that, I want to highlight some of the amazing strategies and effective papers that have come out in the last 2 years. This is the one I mentioned that had those examples of those at-risk individuals in the field. It's from Nature, Ecology, and Evolution, and it was published in 2021. Check it out if you haven't seen it. An aspect that I feel is less discussed, but very relevant, is disability and fieldwork. This is an excellent overview of an inclusive experience centered around disability by Domenico Chiarella and Gracia Burrow from Geological Magazine from 2 years ago, 2020. And it's really exciting to see all these papers that will be soon coming out. So these are 3 preprints that I want to highlight. This one is best practices for LGBTQ+ inclusion during ecological fieldwork, considering safety, cis heteronormativity, and structural barriers. Another one, a set of principles or practical suggestions for equitable fieldwork in biology. So it is with great excitement that I see these very carefully put together strategies and conversations about DEI and ethics in the field. And you can find so many resources right now, like I want to highlight even this one. Bathroom breaks, toilet use is one of those details that are very important when you're doing field work. Here's a preprint, toilet stops in the field and educational primary recommendations of best practices for field-based teaching. So with all of this, all the resources you need can be found, and there is a single central place that I would like to highlight. This is the website of the Advanced Geo Partnership. It's a central place where you can find resources on how gender, race, and ethnicity, sexual orientation and ability shape field experiences, inclusivity, accessibility, and safety in the field, harassment, bullying, and discrimination in the field, and sample field codes of conduct that could be really useful if you're just starting to think about codes of conduct for your research group, for your field station, or beyond. For those interested in diving deeper into strategies and recommendations, I would like to highlight and recommend the report of this workshop to promote safety in field sciences that was organized by CSU, the Desert Sites, and the Consortium for Asian Leadership in March 2021. It has 52 recommendations that are targeted at improving field science, culture change, as well as misconduct, accountability, policy, and reporting. So I think for developing and implementation of effective strategies, we have to tackle this from two fronts. One is from top-down initiatives as funding agencies, universities, institutes, and field stations provide comprehensive policies for prevention, implementation, and accountability for field work, safe and inclusive practices. But also, I think we need to come together from the bottom up. And this is where many of you and me as supervisors and researchers can participate. But you may ask yourself, well, but what can it really do? And especially if you are not in a position of power. Well, I will say, first, as I just pointed out, there are many resources. Let's educate ourselves and go beyond our own perspectives and perceptions of safety. Listen and don't assume you know best, even if you have maybe doing fieldwork for ages and have lots of experience. Give others a chance to provide their perspective. And finally, I think very importantly, bring others to this conversation. The more we have meaningful conversations about inclusivity and DI issues in the field, the more likely are we going to change the culture and the environment. And with that, I think that's where I think scientific societies come also in the middle and will help us bring both approaches together and help us amplify the message. So places like ATBC, like today, that is giving us this space. With that, I would like to thank all of you for watching this video, the organizers of the symposium, Bea, Carolina, and Kevin. Thank you all for listening.